Hello everybody, as promised in my YouTube tutorial about reverbs, here we go with a little question and answers. My name is Daniel Leitweiler and I'm a mixing engineer. Okay, let's go. Jordi Paleras, I think I need my glasses to read. Thank you very much for sharing with us your care throughout this well-explained and valuable information and so on and so on. When do you use your expensive outboard reverbs and when the in-the-box reverbs? Is there a difference in quality regarding good external versus good in-the-box reverbs? Actually an excellent question. 20 years ago, when I started, the in-the-box reverbs really did not sound good, and you just had to add some external reverbs in order to make a professional mix. Today, the reverbs are much more close. So basically, when do I use in-the-box reverbs? I have to say all the time, because you open up the session a week later, everything is the same. If you use outboard reverbs, you have to reload the presets. I'm too lazy for that. Also, if I need heavy automation, that's great with a plugin that you can automate all the parameters. That's a really great feature. Now the outboard reverbs, I think they do sound a little bit better. If you compare, let's say, the Lexicon plugins and Lexicon 960 or 480, usually the outboard is more lush. It's a little wider sounding and a little bit more expensive sounding. It's subtle, but I can note it. But if you don't have an outboard lexicon, you can simulate that effect with other plugins. As I showed in the tutorial, you could have a micro pitch shift by Sound Toys after your lexicon plugin, and then it will sound closer. That would be about the answer. You can get absolutely professional mixes with in-the-box reverbs, really no question, and they are great reverbs. Let's go on. Again, Jordi, are there reverbs that are good to keep things in the front, and are there other reverbs that are better to bring instruments at the back? Or is it only about the setting? Yeah, again, very good question. In my tutorial, I explained that the most important thing is to be able to bring certain things to the back so that you have a lot of depth of field, while other things you want to have close. But if you want to have something close, the goal is not to bring the reverb down. That's what a lot of engineers are doing, but then your mix sounds small. The goal is to keep the reverb loud, but it must be in a way that your source is in front, if it needs to be in front. And yes, it's not only about settings. There are reverbs that are great if you want to have something in the front. With the expensive outboard reverbs, you could compare the Bricasti and the Quantec. With the Bricasti, things almost in every case stay in front. So the Bricasti, for me, is great for a solo singer or a solo saxophone, something that I want to have in front. With the Bricasti, of course, the settings have to be right. You have to engage pre-delay, like I explained in the tutorial, and to do some other things. But usually the source will stay in front and you will have a nice wall at the back. While with the Quantec, the opposite happens. With the Quantec, your source goes to the back automatically, and that is the strength of the Quantec. So with plugins, for example, the Little Plate by Sound Toys, great plate. It's actually nice if you want to have your source in the front and the reverb nicely at the back. While you could use the Valhalla Room or also Lexicon Chamber. Those are two plugins where it's very easy to bring something at the back. So yes, you have to get used to the plugins. That's very important, and some are good for one thing, some are better for other things. Next question. Yeren asks, if you compress the reverbs, is it better to compress before or after the reverb? Short answer, it's better to compress after the reverb, because we want to have a reverb, and then with the compression we make the reverb bigger. If you compress before the reverb, that's often not a good idea, because let's think about that you have a vocal in the verse at this level, and then the chorus, she sings a little bit louder. If you compress before the reverb, it will mean that your reverb sound in the chorus is lower, and we usually don't want this. So yeah, after the reverb is better. Next question, again, Jeroen, if you have different sources of reverbs in series, do you have a good order? For example, plate after room? No, actually not, except that if we want to introduce a room and then a larger reverb, it's usually better to start with the room, which is kind of logical, and then the large reverb. However, if you combine the reverbs with delays, it can be great to have the delay before, or it can be great to have the delay after the reverb. It's a matter of choice and also of the matter in which direction should the mix go. So yeah, no rule except room before larger reverbs. That would be my opinion. One last question by Jeroen. On a drum sound with several mics, do you send every mic into the reverb, or do you send, as an example, the snare mic less into the reverb? Well, probably vice versa. I would send the snare mic louder into the reverb. But to answer it, yes, usually every microphone goes to reverb. Very often drums are recorded in small room, at least on recordings that we here get in Switzerland and Germany. We don't have those large studios like they have in the United States. And the drum should not sound totally in front. The vocal has to be in front. So we need to get the drum somehow behind. And usually my go-to trick is I send really every mic, also the bass drum, it's really important, into a room reverb. But then maybe the bass drum less, the snare maybe a little bit more, and the overheads and the tom, everything goes in. And what is a good trick, if you have room mics, but maybe the room doesn't sound really big, then send the room mics even more to this room reverb. And then I usually set up a second reverb that's a little bit more magic, more lush sounding, maybe a plate. And mainly I will send the snare and the tom-toms to go in this plate, but not the bass drum and the overhead. But yeah, whatever works best. Let's go on. What else do we have? Andreas Gutun Azur, I hope I spell it right, he writes, "Thank you very much. Your examples sound truly amazing." Thanks for this. Would love to find more information on scoring projects you are involved in. It's actually a good idea. We will produce a lot of learning videos later, and I might do some about scoring. Then we have Michael asking, how do you create that extremely long and epic reverbs that you are well known for? Yeah, this is really something I like. I like long reverbs. Usually the goal is to also work with delays. A delay before the reverb. So if you have a single snare, tack, then the snare makes tack, 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 tack. So if this goes into the reverb, the input signal is already kind of more rich. So the reverb that is coming out on a reverb will be more epic. Then usually it's shape and spread, or whatever this parameter is called in your reverb. It might also be attack and spread. In the precasti, it's only the size thing. If you work with a little plate where you don't have shape and spread, you can compress it. But usually what it means is that the reverb starts and it gets bigger slowly. So then it's a lush build up, and this is one trick. And then have some nice delays again after the reverb, so that actually the reverb tail is delayed too. And then you get epic and nice reverbs that don't compete with other things in the mix. So this would be one trick. Then what else do we have? Yannick asks, what type of reverb do you use for which kind of instruments? That's actually a tough question, because it's a little bit a matter of taste. And you could actually use all kinds of reverbs for all kinds of instrument. I like plates, real plates, or if you're on a plugin, Altiverb has some good plate emulations. As I said, the little plate does a good job in emulating a plate. I like plates on saxophone, on vocals, or on snare sounds, but sometimes I use it on guitar and the piano either. Sometimes I use lexicon plates. Yeah, that's really just a matter of taste. Or to say it in better words, you actually have to be inspired by the music given to you to mix, and then this guides you to which reverbs you're using. It's actually something that develops over the years of making progress as an engineer. And then if you do this every day for 20 years, you just feel which reverb is right, and very often that's then the right decision. Then, again, question by Yannick. How do you deal with the high and the low cuts in the reverbs? A good question too. It's a good idea to filter out, and it's not only high and low cut. You could also have an equalizer just before the reverb, and there you could have a high and a low cut, but even a mid cut, or you could even boost frequencies. Usually I cut out whatever I don't like in the original sound. However, I might not be able to EQ it out on the original sound. Let me be more clear. I have a saxophone, and the saxophone sounds very muddy and dull. However, on the saxophone itself, if you cut out all those frequencies, then the saxophone is sounding too little. So I might have to leave a little bit of those frequencies in. However, if I send it to the reverb, those frequencies don't need to go to the reverb. So there I can filter it out even a little bit more before the reverb. Or if a guitar is sounding harsh because it has a lot of highs, but maybe it needs those highs to cut through, but then it's often a good idea to cut those highs out of the reverb. So basically, it's a matter of taste. Whatever you don't like, filter it out before the reverb. Let's see if you have some more. I think we have a last question by Francisco Ingiogarde. Sorry for probably not spelling it right. He writes, "This series is so helpful. Would love more on the topic, as I'm actually currently studying more about reverb, delays and other time-based modulation process in mixing. My question would be, how many reverbs, delays, sends do I set up? Do I do one per instrument or one per group or more, etc., etc.? Yeah, thanks for the compliment first. And actually set up as many as you want. I tend to say more is better. However, you still can do more. But I often like to have a room if something needs to go behind, then a nice reverb to make it nice, a delay. If it's too much, you'll hear it. And if you have not enough, you also hear it. It's basically also guided by taste, but I like to have several delays or reverbs for each channels. So thanks for all the questions. We'll soon release some more lessons. Go to my homepage, danieldetweiler.com, sign up. We need some months to prepare the lessons, but then more will come. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.